Welcome. I'd like to call this meeting to order, and we'll start with the land acknowledgement.
The lands we know today as the Township of Centre Wellington have been home to Indigenous peoples since time immemorial. We acknowledge that we are on the treaty lands and the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee. With increasing encroachment by non-Indigenous settlers in the Township of Centre Wellington, the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee could not continue their traditional lifestyle and settled in their villages along the Credit River and in the Grand River Valley. These Indigenous nations uphold their treaty rights within our jurisdiction. Today, the Township of Centre Wellington remains home to the Indigenous peoples from across Turtle Island. We are grateful to have the opportunity to share and respect Mother Earth and are committed to building constructive and cooperative relationships with Indigenous nations.
Thank you, Councillor McDonald. Addendums and corrections to the agenda.
There are none.
Disclosure of pecuniary interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. Councillor Elton.
Thank you, Mayor Waters. I just want to declare a conflict with report number 11.7, RZ0524, the zoning bylaw enactment for 6235 Guelph Street for the IPA Power Bus Facility. The reason is my spouse is a partner at MHBC Planning, and MHBC does provide planning consulting services for the above mentioned agenda. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Wilton. At this time, we're going to be going into a closed session, so I'll read this. That the Council of Township of Centre Wellington convene in closed session in accordance with Section 2392C of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended to consider proposed or pending disposition of land by the municipality. To have a mover for that, Councillor Evoy, seconder on that, Councillor Adams. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? So moved. So we'll be in closed session. We'll be back in approximately an hour's time. So welcome everyone back into our council meeting. We are in closed session and there's something to come forward on that. So I'll read the resolution. Recommend to be passed in open session that the Council of Township of Centre Wellington approves the categorization of township properties and directs staff to commence the process of identifying and declaring surplus properties, and that council authorize staff to prepare and issue a request for proposal for professional real estate services to assist in appraising, marketing, and facilitating the sale of surplus properties, as well as the Fergus Business Park lands. And that council directs staff to establish a dedicated housing reserve fund, and that council delegates authority to sell the identified surplus land included to the Chief Administrative Officer. So do I have a mover for that? Councillor Wilton, seconder on that. Councillor Evoy. Any further comments or questions? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor? That's so moved. Okay. Sorry, I've just lost my my notes here. Oh, here they go. Matters are arising. We talked about that. Presentation announcements. So we're moving down to item 8, and we're going to welcome Councillor Diane Ballantyne to provide us some county updates. And welcome, Diane.
Thank you very much. So thanks for the opportunity to bring updates to Town Council from the county. My current committees at Council are Administration, Finance, and Human Resources, as well as Information, Heritage, and Seniors. And I continue to serve on the county, be the county's representative on the Groves Community Hospital Board, as well as the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, which is our provincial advocacy organization. So there's a lot going on at the county. Some of the highlights: the Green Legacy Tree giveaway is set for October the 1st at 10 a.m. So this is an online ordering process. So if you are interested in receiving some of our Green Legacy trees, make sure that you get your account set up, and you can go to the county's website to get the instructions on how to do that. They're very hot commodities, so they're going to go quickly. The Green Legacy program, as a side note, is the largest municipal tree planting program in North America, and the county has planted more than 3 million trees in the last 20 years. When I was last here, I told you that Council approved the funds to begin the RFP process for the Children's Museum space at the existing Wellington County Museum and Archives. That project is fully underway and will be completed soon. So watch for details of the opening of the Children's Museum space at the museum in the new year. That's when the official opening will take place. So, and speaking of children, we all know that we are sorely lacking in licensed childcare spaces in Central Wellington and across the county more broadly, and probably arguably across the province as well. It's a complex issue that requires significant financial support from the upper orders of government. So the county is continuing to advocate for increased capital spending, but in the meantime, we will be expanding the Aboyne Child Care Center, and that is currently underway, and there will be another 10 to 15 spots that are available there in the not too distant future. Regarding our roads, I'd like to thank the residents for their patience during construction seasons, especially on County Road 18. This summer, we now have the stoplights operational at County Road 29, and the roundabout at County Road 18 and 26 is almost done. It is operational, but it's not quite done just yet. The Elora Transfer Station. That is always a hot topic in the community. And so, as you know, it's the busiest transfer station in the county. It's undergoing significant renovations, and it's been closed since the spring. The upgrades are going to include an expanded drop-off area for improved unloading and site traffic management, scale house construction with installation of dual scales, and a replacement of the retaining wall and the household hazardous waste building. It's expected to reopen in December. In the meantime, the Bellwood facility continues to operate from Tuesday to Saturday from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Our transfer stations have also started to accept mattresses, shingles, and drywall as a diversion service. And this diversion of mattresses alone, even in this short period of time that we've been doing it, has lengthened the life of the landfill by more than 3 years, which is actually really important. And I know maybe landfill and understanding that is not at the top of mind for anybody, but managing our waste is actually actually a really important service that we provide. And so there hasn't been a new landfill that's been open in Ontario in 25 years. And it takes more than 10 years in order to bring a new landfill online. And with 30% of Ontario's waste traveling to Michigan and New York, the county is in excellent shape with regards to our landfill capacity. So we're very lucky to have that. The Blue Box program is part of the solid waste services of the county. Businesses were not included in the province's new producer responsibility program, and County Council decided to invest in providing continuity of recycling services to the businesses by establishing a curbside collection program for the 14 downtown business areas across the county. All the businesses that are outside of the downtown cores also have access to recycling services through free drop-off of recycling materials at the county's waste facilities. There is a mishmash of information and rules that are coming from the provincial government about new changes to the IC&I sector, which is the industrial, commercial, and institutional sector. They've just been announced, and so we're low on details right now. Currently, the Blue Box program pickup schedule is the same as what the county was providing, but in January, the producers could change that. So stay tuned for further information as that becomes available. The correct number to call if you do have an issue with your blue boxes, the county has the correct number for you. It's not the county solid waste services any longer, but we've got the number on the website for you. And then as far as the garbage pickup or the compost services that we have, you can continue to use the Recycle Coach app, or you can go to the county solid waste services website. In housing, the county has provided $1 million of funding to each of our member municipalities to support locally focused affordable housing projects. The details have been provided to each municipality, and the council has already approved funding for seniors housing expansion in Guelph-Aramasa. And in finance, today, just announced, the county has received another AAA credit rating from Standard & Poor. This is the highest rating that a municipality can receive, and it reflects our effective fiscal management. The benefits of having such a credit rating isn't just bragging rights. It also means that we have a lower interest rate for borrowing for both the county and at the member municipality level. So this helps our tax dollars go farther when we're providing our residents with services and infrastructure. So those are my updates from the county, and I'm happy to take any questions if you have any.
Thank you, Diane. Councillor McDonald.
Thank you so much for coming. That's a lot of information. The Recycle app, will that get updated in January too as things change and unfold? Will it be worthwhile keeping that app?
It'll be worthwhile keeping the Recycle Coach app because it's going to remind you which week to put your yellow bags out, because it's an every other week service. So that's always helpful. It'll also provide you with information about what you can put into your Blue Box recycling. But I'm not sure, because the county is no longer part of the Blue Box program, whether we're going to use our app to provide the information from the producers. We're going to need to wait to find out what the producers choose to do and what collection days and all those kinds of things, and then determine whether it makes sense to dovetail those together.
Councillor Evoy.
It's through you. Just one more question. Thanks so much, Diana. It was a great report. Do you have any indication on whether or not our residents will be having fewer or the same amount of collection dates for both garbage and particularly recycling?
We would all like to know that information, but we do not know that as yet. The producers have not informed us.
Any other comments, questions? Yeah, just on the mattress, that's something, a big deal in terms of that program, because we're the first, my understanding, to invest in that process. And so an opportunity for the other municipalities within the province to look at those types of innovative programs in terms of getting rid of mattresses. The mattresses are terrible as it relates to landfill. They take up a lot of space. And so very proud of the fact that the county is one of the first to to do that diversion that way. And literally, they grind it down and break it down, and mattresses take a huge up space. So it'll preserve again our I think you mentioned 3 years that way. So something that we should be very proud of. The other part of this is the county have also been good stewards of our landfill, and it's something that probably the rest of the province could look at us in terms of how I do that. But we're in a very precarious spot in Ontario in terms of landfill, and we're going to need to figure out this very quickly in terms of where we go overall in the province. Anyways, Diane, thank you very much for your presentation today, and looking forward to see you in the next county council meeting. So.
Thanks very much.
Okay, so we're going to go to councillors' committee updates. Councillor McDonald.
First, I'd like to say tomorrow is the day of Truth and Reconciliation in Centre Wellington. We will be meeting at the Fergus Grand Theatre in Fergus to celebrate Truth and Reconciliation. The event is organized by the Township of Centre Wellington and Dalton Associates with an evening of storytelling and reflection on residential schools. Today I wear my own shirt in orange and my beaded earrings made by my cousin. Both are Indigenous women-owned businesses. Safe Communities meeting was held September 17th. Safe Communities Day is coming up October 1st and 2nd, where we will recognize the event in Wellington County where grade 5 students are educated in safe communities and everything we do in injury prevention, and recognize the work and design of designated safe communities organizations in Canada and globally to raise public awareness. The last meeting, we had a great discussion with CMHA about mental health and how CMHA can best support our community. The economic development meeting was held September 11th. We discussed development charges, background study, and stormwater rate study. Update presentation from CAO Wilson and Daryl Abbs, managing partner at Watson and Associates, Economists Limited. And that's all.
Thank you, Councillor McDonald. Any other councillors like to speak? Yes, Councillor Evoy.
Thank you, through you. So there's a couple of things. First of all, with regards to farm safety, there's been a lot of work going on, and we very proudly share that there's been a lot of money spent and a lot of families served with regards to educating. In fact, we are looking at numbers somewhere around a couple of thousand that we've been able to positively affect in the last year. So farm safety is moving forward with a lot of energy, as always. With regards to DEI, I also want to recognize that tomorrow is National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. And again, I look forward to seeing you tomorrow night at the theater. Some of the work that's been happening goes at the DEI committee goes along with there's been a request for crosswalks, the Elora Legion requesting crosswalk paintings in honor of veterans. So we're talking about that. We've also had consideration of things that include Indigenous themed names, which we've discussed around logos and imagery within the township facilities and properties based on the policy update. We've also talked about reviewing new diverse and inclusive programs as we go forward. So again, with regards to DEI, they are moving forward. We are moving forward with an increased passion and I want to say pace that things are picking up, and the committee is growing more and more involved and committed to our community. So great work for all the volunteers on that committee.
Thank you, Councillor Evoy. Any other comments, questions? Yes, Councillor Jefferson.
Thank you, Mayor Waters. The Elora BIA met on September 16th. We had a paid parking initiative presentation by our CAO. Dana and Kendra came. Monster Month, The Awakening, is kicking off on October 3rd in the evening, I believe at 6:30 down in the green space. The 2026 budget draft is going to be brought forward at the October meeting, so members are being asked to bring any ideas that they have for the 2026 budget, any events, marketing, etc. They can bring those forward, and they're hoping to have their AGM at their November meeting. So we're hoping to line everything up with the budget in October and then the AGM in November. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Jefferson. Any other councillor minutes? Okay. Now we'll move down to delegations, 9.1, and I'd like to invite Victoria Nagy, Chair of Heritage Centre Wellington, up to the podium. Hello, Victoria.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Mayor and Councillors. Good evening. My name is Victoria, and I'm here tonight, both in my capacity as the Chair of Heritage Centre Wellington, as well as a heritage professional, to urge you to vote in favor of item 10.2 and issue a notice of intention to designate 219 Farley Road under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. Heritage Centre Wellington values this property and does not want to see it fall into further disrepair. At all costs, our community should not lose this important heritage asset through demolition by neglect. Designation under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act will protect this property from demolition and avert further deterioration by awarding protections under our property standards bylaw. As per the Property Standards Bylaw, an owner of a heritage property shall 1. Protect, maintain, and stabilize heritage attributes. 2. In the conduct of a repair, use only materials that match the form and detailing of the original elements. And 3. Use only recognized conservation methods. As this property is also vacant, and has been so for some time, the Property Standards Bylaw specifies that the property must be secured against unauthorized entry, have liability insurance, and be protected against the risk of fire, accident, or other danger. Furthermore, where a heritage property has remained vacant for a period of 2 years and continues in a state of disrepair and deterioration, a property standards officer may issue an order to repair the vacant building in compliance with the standards set out in our bylaw. 219 Farley Road deserves these protections as an important heritage asset in Centre Wellington Township. 219 Farley Road was settled by Thomas Curzon Alladis, who initially built a log house on the property around 1835. Thomas and his family were heavily involved in the social development of the township and engaged in local politics. The dwelling at 219 Farley Road is significant because it is a representative example of the Gothic Revival cottage architectural style. Lastly, the stone farmhouse is the last remaining structure of the original 250-acre farm complex. As urban development increasingly surrounds the property, it is becoming a more significant link to its agricultural past. This property is a classic example of a heritage asset being slowly eroded by time and apathy. Mayor Waters and councillors, you have the opportunity this evening to vote on behalf of our constituents, your constituents, not mine, and ensure this legacy can continue to contribute to our township fabric. Please understand, by taking a firm stance against demolition by neglect, Centre Wellington Township can continue to appreciate a large and diverse extant public and built heritage landscape. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Is there some questions for clarifications for Victoria? Yes, Councillor Wilton.
Could you clarify what size the property is, please? The lot? It could
That's
be
a great
approximate.
question. The lot is, yeah, so 250 acres is the original property, and that means like from the 1880s. I believe the lot size.
My colleague has found it.
Yeah, 0.3 acres.
Okay, thank you.
Any other? Yes, Councillor Evoy.
Thank you, through you, sir. Just curious, and I looked it over and didn't actually see it. So if we designate it, what is the committee's hope that happens after that?
So in terms of if there was no object or money object or anything, it would be great to have this building continue to exist and also be adaptive into a property that's used in the community. So in other subdivisions with heritage properties such as this, a lot of times they're included in the subdivision and used as an event space, as a community space. In terms, this has happened, in Guelph, sometimes they're privately owned and rented out. Sometimes they're obviously owned by the township. But I think in terms of being, first of all, preserving our heritage and also ensuring that it's continued use, because when buildings are vacant, no one wins, and a green building is one that's already built. So it'd be great to see it used in the community. So it continues to stand, it continues to tell its story, but it also serves a purpose.
Councillor Wilton?
Thank you, Mayor Waters. Just another question. I assume the developer of the development there currently owns the property. Is that correct?
I believe so, yeah.
Are they interested in having this property designated, or what is their role and their perspective on this issue?
In previous development applications, they have, I believe, been interested, and I'm not sure, someone could correct me, but I think they have committed to designating the property. Committed? Sorry, I wouldn't say committed. They have seemed open, maybe is a better term, to designating the property. A designation can be, is obviously through the direction of council. So council makes that decision. There is an objection and appeal period. So the owner of the property does have the opportunity to object to the designation, and then council could then take that objection and make a decision whether to move forward with a designation. But they do have rights to be involved in the process.
Councillor McDonald?
Through your Mayor Waters, it's unfortunate that they're not here. Because so it's empty now is what it says. And then it's just going to sit empty. Do we know that part?
I think that's the hard part. I think with designating, there is this view of designation as that it preserves the property in amber. It doesn't. It just ensures that it won't be demolished. So through creating the bylaw can be as prescriptive as the township and the planners can be, and they can work with the owner to create a bylaw that is open to change so that the property can be hopefully adaptively used for some sort of space in the future. A lot of times with these types of buildings, usually those heritage attributes that are protected through the bylaw are exterior features. So a lot of times because with buildings like this, the interior usually has been impacted or changed over time. So there's very little heritage value to interior features usually anyways. So a lot of times it's the built form, it's the fabric, it's the window openings that can be protected through the bylaw. So, and you can add additions. You can do many things with a designated property. It doesn't mean that it is opposed to change. It just means that it will continue to stand. And hopefully with the owners will be open to collaborating on the bylaw to ensure that the property can stand, but also be used in a useful way and contribute to the community.
Okay, any other questions? Just maybe a comment. I know we at Heritage, I know the group spent a lot of time on this, and I think in my mind there's a real opportunity for the developer to take this and use it as a community benefit, for that community, and obviously the importance of the linkage to the heritage of that property. It sort of goes back to that old adage when a developer goes in and develops a site, and I didn't say in this one, but a lot of times they name it after all the attributes that they've taken down. So, and here this value is here, and it's literally in people's backyards. And I think it's a real opportunity for the developer to embrace this and be a really community asset and a reminder of this beautiful community we live in the heritage. So I think there's a real opportunity here, and I believe that the developer will do the right thing. So, yes, Councillor Evoy.
Thank you, through you and to you. Knowing what you just said, and I have a little concern about it having sat already for some time, and we don't have a clear indication of when things will be moving on this space. Is there a way to have any kind of, like, who's going to upkeep this property before the developer has it? Like, I'm just a little worried that nobody's going to take care of it, which is, I believe, what the concern of our delegate was as well. I'm a little concerned that if we're waiting for the developer to get to the development, that it would be a low item on their, fair enough, on their totem pole. Can we come up with a combined effort that we can help keep it up, or what can we look at?
I think what Victoria was saying is sort of by designating it, it provides opportunities to do those things. Mm-hmm. So, and it also gives an opportunity for everyone to come back and talk about it again. Because sometimes when these things aren't designated, there is really no opportunity to discuss. But what these nice kind of elements do is its ability to put us all in the room to have face-to-face. Councillor Wilton.
Thank you, Mayor Waters. I'm just curious if there's any conversation at Heritage Centre Wellington about kind of the conflict we're in right now with I have two colleagues sitting here with orange shirts, which I admire greatly. So we're in one hand celebrating the settlement by Scottish immigrants in the 1800s, while at the other hand, we're also being respectful of what the impact that had on Indigenous nations in Canada. So I'm just curious if that conversation comes up, because I'm actually not comfortable with designating this, because I don't see it as a critical thing that our community needs right now. So I'm just curious if that conversation comes up, that conflict between, on one hand, celebrating heritage when heritage actually had quite a lot of damage. So thank you.
For sure. I think that is an excellent question. And in terms of Heritage Centre Wellington, if you're looking at this property was evaluated for its cultural heritage value. So to do that, it's compared to the criteria for cultural heritage value that are written in Ontario Regulation 906. To determine, there are 9 criteria. And if it has been said that these criteria inherently preserve Euro-Canadian or settler infrastructure. I'm a licensed archaeologist as well as a heritage professional. So learning more about Indigenous culture is part of the game. And many people in Canada do forget that the vast majority of our archaeological fabric is Indigenous in nature. I think in terms of moving forward in the spirit of truth and reconciliation, that is something that as of Bill 23, which came into effect in 2022, one of the goals that kind of came out of that by municipalities was to prioritize designating properties or landscapes or buildings that were either associated with people of color or Indigenous communities, because by looking and studying their own registers, there was a gap of those two communities. So that's definitely something that not just Centre Wellington, but the whole province has to move towards. And it's something that you kind of have to not actively fight, but definitely keep in mind when looking at the designation criteria in and of themselves. So that's something that we try to look for. We're very lucky here in Centre Wellington that we have the Heritage Landscape Study to kind of fall back on. And there was a lot of great work done by that consultant to identify landscapes and potential conservation districts in Fergus and Elora. And especially with the riverscapes are really important to Indigenous communities as they represent a connection with the land. And also in terms of archaeological resources, if you're looking at a property within 300 meters of a water body, including rivers, that's seen as an indicator of archaeological potential. So that is something that's on our minds. I wouldn't say it's in every designation discussion, but it's definitely something in order to be true treaty people, we have to continue to be on the lookout for and to understand. And I think in terms of people of color, Pierpoint and the Pierpoint designation project and the site there is a really good example of how this community has tried to promote its stories of people of color, and hopefully we can continue to do that with other properties and assets in our community.
Okay. If there's no other questions or for clarification for Victoria, I really thank you for your presentation. Also, thank you for bringing a lot of your knowledge as well as a professional tonight. Thank you, Victoria.
Thank you.
Okay, so we go now down to 9.2, and we'll invite Stacey Barron up to talk about the municipal accommodation tax implementation update. Welcome, Stacey.
Did you want to? So Devlin is going to be playing a video of my husband and I trying to put out the fire that came adjacent to our property from the week and a half ago, fire that happened at 82 Metcalfe. And there is no audio. What's missing are the firefighters asking if we are at max hose. All right. A week and a half ago, my husband and I not only witnessed the devastating fire in our wood frame house neighborhood at the Elora Pottery on Church Street, but as you can see, we actually participated in keeping our property safe by hosing down our property line. In the missing audio, thank you to our firefighters for saving our home and the adjacent properties. We saw just how quickly flames jumped from house to yard and almost to our house. You can see how our garden hose was no match for the fire jumping around to the strewn hay bales and antiquated flammable wood objects that littered the property. At 1 a.m., I witnessed how smoke and fire overwhelmed the escape routes. The displaced STR guests of 82 Metcalfe said to me, I was on my laptop and the space heater was too close to the curtains and it got sucked into the heater and immediately the curtains went up in flames. I make the charge today that if this building and the 168 days that have elapsed since the clerk tabled the new STR bylaw back in April to assist in STR regulation, that we would not have two tenants of that building now looking for a new home in a town with nearly zero vacancy. And we wouldn't have a building requiring $1.2 million in repairs that may or may not be covered by insurance. I know my insurer calls me regularly to update my policy. It is immediately apparent how tragedy strikes when safety is not front and center. It is your duty to act. The township needs biannual inspections and require each short-term and long-term rental to have functioning smoke alarms on every level, including outside sleeping areas, carbon monoxide detectors if there are fuel burning appliances or attached garages, fire extinguishers in kitchens, and ideally one more per floor, clear marked emergency exits, unobstructed escape routes, and no flammable materials near exits, like in this case. An evacuation plan posted visibly in the property for guests, showing at least two ways out, safe egress through windows and doors, especially in the basement or upstairs.
Excuse me, Stacey. My understanding this was involving the municipal accommodation tax.
I'm getting.
I think it's only fair to, especially when you've provided an information to us in terms of what this is, and doing something, like talking about something else, which is not really fair for this council and really not what we were prepared to talk about today. So if you could move on to the move on to the municipal accommodation tax portion of this, that would be very much appreciated.
Okay. The proposed tourism tax on short-term rentals gives us more than just revenue. It gives us leverage. It lets us mandate that any STR, guest house, or short-term lodging must pass fire safety inspections, install proper alarms and clear exits, and remain compliant or lose their license. It allows us to use part of that tax to support upgrades to older structures, fund inspection regimes, and build resilience. I object to anyone suggesting that licensing fees and tourism tax associated with ensuring that their property is safe for humans is unreasonable. We are talking about keeping humans alive. If you don't want to be in that business that requires safety, then perhaps you need to move on. As someone who lives in a village that is constructed mainly of wood homes, we need to ensure that rentals of any kind, whether short or long-term, are absolutely bound by regulations around safety and insurance. The township needs to be the adult in the room and get something in place. I am tired of the delays. This isn't about punishing hosts. It's about protecting neighbors, guests, and our children. With the tourism tax correctly structured, we can ensure that every short-term rental operating our town is not a liability, but a safe, responsible asset.
Thank you for that. Questions, comments, Council, for clarification? Yes, Councillor McDonald.
Through you, Mayor Waters, thank you so much for bringing this forward. I supported my colleagues' notice of motion for all of this, and under the municipal accommodation tax, I think we can do this too. Like, we can put it all together. So thank you so much for coming. It was devastating to the community, to say the least, and we're still kind of all working through it. So thank you.
Any other comments from council? Okay. Thank you, Stacey, for your presentation. Okay, we'll move down to item 10, consent items. Consent agenda items are considered routine in nature and are voted on collectively. However, any member of council may request one or more items be removed from the consent agenda item for separate discussions and or actions. So I'll read the recommendations that the Council of Township of Centre Wellington approve consent agenda items 10.1 through to 10.7. Do I have a mover for that? Sorry. Yeah, Councillor Evoy.
Thank you. Just a small side discussion on whether or not we should remove Farley from the consent agenda.
Well, I'm just going to put out I'm just going to put the first, and then we can have discussion on that. So were you going to move? Okay.
Just asking.
Okay. Councillor Adam, move. Seconder, Councillor Wilton. Okay. Open for discussions. Yes, Councillor Wilton.
Thank you, Mayor Waters. I would like to remove 10.2, the heritage designation for 219 Farley Road, Fergus, and to be voted on separately, please. Thank you.
With the exception of 10.2.
Yeah, as long as everyone's cool with that. Yeah. Okay. Oh, sorry. From I'm assuming it's a procedural.
Through you. Well, I am, just because we're dealing with the heritage designations. I wonder if we pull 10.2 and 10.3 to be dealt with separately.
We can do them all separately. That's not a problem. So
Just give me a minute here.
yeah, we'll just get next steps here. Yes, Councillor Jefferson.
Thank you, Mayor Waters. Just a question for clarification. Are you pulling these currently for us to vote on now, or are you pulling these so that we can do the consent agenda first for a vote and then the heritage properties?
Technically, the consent is up in front right now. So, but
okay, so then we would be looking
whatever is left out of that consent.
Okay, just for priority of the vote. I'm also wondering if we're going to be doing the Farley, that maybe there should be a presentation for that from our staff on that.
That is a good point because there might be new information there that we didn't have, though Victoria did a great job. There might be definitely information there that might be pertinent. So we could technically, I guess, come back to that. How would that go?
Well, I would first like you to deal with the remainder of the consent.
But in terms of the one, we're looking for a report from staff. Then how would we deal with that?
I would suggest let's clear the consent agenda off, and then you can ask staff to make to step forward and make a presentation.
Thank you for that. Whenever you're ready, I'll take a.
Sure. So it would be items 10.1 and 10.5 through 10.7 is what you're voting on.
That's in terms of the consent items. So we already had a mover and a seconder on that?
Mover and a seconder.
Okay.
If everyone's clear on what you're voting on?
Yep. So if everyone's good that way, then I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor as it relates to those items? Sorry.
I had a question around 10.7. Can I ask that now?
Sure.
I'm looking for a little more clarification what that means. Just that we've received the report on tourism winter experience. Is that all in for Fergus and Elora? Does that account for the Christmas piece? Like what does that reflect?
I'm looking to Pat provide some background.
Yeah, the information's in the report. It was taken to the EPG committee, and it was total of $5,000 off the top of my head. I'd have to read it again, that have been allocated to different groups to put on winter experiences in our municipality to draw tourism during the off season. That's what you're agreeing to, and it was already reviewed and accepted by EPG.
Okay. Do you want me to read that again? So we're all clear on what the consent items are? So we had a mover and seconder. All those in favor? Okay, so move. So we've dealt with the consent, and now we had pulled these other ones out. So we'll look at those individually.
You're going to ask staff to provide an overview of 19.
Okay, so do you want to deal with that one first then?
I do.
Okay. Council requests that staff provide an overview of the report 219, and I'll read the recommendation. We don't have to do anything with it. I'll read it first. That the Council of Township of Centre Wellington states its notice of intent to designate the property municipality known as 219 Farley Road, Fergus, as a property of cultural heritage value or interest pursuant to Section 29, Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. Okay. Was that the complete?
Yep, that's it. And we move on to the other one.
Okay, so that's out there now. So at this time, can I ask that I have staff maybe speak to that?
Yeah, Marianne and Deanna were both here in case there were questions.
Okay. Deanna, how are you?
Good evening, Mayor Waters, members of council. I think I can add a little bit of context to what Victoria explained earlier. So this was a subdivision application. Before I started here, so Mariana might need to jump in, or Brett. But essentially, through the subdivision agreement, it was agreed upon that this house would be retained. There was a cultural heritage evaluation report prepared at that time. So it was always intended that the house would be retained and designated. Now that it's falling into disrepair, we thought it pertinent to move forward with designation to urge the owners to keep up with the dwelling. And that also kind of gives us a little bit more teeth through our bylaw to help that along.
If I could just add a couple of comments as well. So during the process, as Deanna stated, they did a cultural heritage evaluation report. And in the subdivision that includes this lot in the phase, this house was retained on its own lot that is larger than all of the surrounding lots. It has a special kind of mixed use zoning so that it would allow some of those kind of other uses that Victoria referred to in her remarks. It's got like a quasi-commercial zone to open up more opportunity for it to be used like a doctor's office or some kind of use that would lend itself to maintaining that fairly large dwelling. But it's only with the registration of the most recent phase, which is phase 2B, that this became a house sitting on its own lot that we could actually proceed with the designation process, because we have to refer to the legal description. So that's why it's kind of coming forward now. And you know, we're in, because of the changes to the Heritage Act and the removal of properties having to come off the register and be designated, that's the priority of things that we're working on, which is why we've come to this one now. The owners of the property have been made aware that the Heritage meeting was happening, and they were made aware that the recommendation was coming forward to tonight, and they will have the opportunity, if they choose to oppose the designation at the Ontario Land Tribunal. But certainly through the secondary plan and the subdivision process, it was anticipated that this house would be retained. Special zoning went on it. It got its own lot. And there are no houses backing onto it for those reasons. So it is an opportune time to designate. And so staff very strongly recommend proceeding with designation.
Okay. Councillor McDonald and then Councillor Evoy.
Through you, Mayor Waters. Thank you. That was very helpful, actually. So the developer from the very beginning knew that you could go down this path and knew that it was always to remain separate.
I believe so. Yeah, that was the intention.
Do we have that in writing that they have responded to? Out of curiosity.
Well, there's nothing written in an agreement because there is no agreement. We have to proceed with the designation. But they've done the studies, and the secondary plan talked about the retention of the house. The subdivision plan that was consented to at the Ontario Land Tribunal, in fact, created a separate lot for this house, so it could be retained with its own special zoning.
Councillor Evoy.
Thank you, through you, sir. I also remember hearing from some people that there was something more significant about this property, something quite historic. I wonder if you could share that too.
Yes, I can speak to that. So I believe we received some information from the Wellington County Museum and Archives about the prehistoric era in Canada, some history on the site related to that, with the discovery of a large mammal bones thought to be mammoth. So there is opportunity for commemoration, or something like a storyboard as well.
Yes, Councillor Jefferson.
Thank you, Mayor Waters. Mine is just a question of clarification. So when looking down onto the property, Edmundston Drive is on the one side and then Farley's on the other. So the property that's, I guess that's at 36 Edmundston, that's vacant. Like, is it continuation right from the one street to the other street that's all that property there?
That's a separately owned township parkette, I believe.
Okay. So then that backs onto the house itself. Okay. Alrighty, thank you.
Any other comments or questions as it relates to this part? Okay. So I read the motion. I didn't have a first and seconder on this. Is there somebody who would care to move this? Councillor Evoy. Seconder on this, Councillor Adams. Any further comments or questions? Okay, call the vote. All those in favor? That's so moved. Thank you. Okay, now you're going to help us meander to the rest of this.
We'll do 298 Union Street now.
Okay, where's that one? I'll read the recommendation that the Council Township of Centre Wellington states its notice of intent to designate the property municipally known as 298 Union Street, East Fergus, as a property of cultural heritage value or interest pursuant to Section 29, Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. So, do I have a mover for that? Councillor Wilton. Seconder on that, Councillor Adams. Comments, questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Oh, sorry, Councillor Adams.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I just wanted to confirm, I wasn't sure what was, I felt like on the first one with Farley, there was potential of not following a staff recommendation. So that's why I asked to pull all of them out, because I wasn't quite sure where that direction of conversation was going to go. But yeah, no issues with this one here.
I'll call up for a vote. All those in favor? So moved. Thank you. Now we'll go to.
Okay, so my written stuff is messed up, so we have to go back to paper. So now we're going to do Melville Street Church.
Okay. So that's Melville Street Church, 300 Street, 44 and 53 St. Andrew Street, West in Fergus, that the recommendation that the Council of Township of Centre Wellington states its notice of intent to designate the property municipally known as 300 Street, St. Andrew Street, or that's odd. Anyways, West Fergus is property of cultural heritage value or interest pursuant to Section 29, Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. Do I have a mover on that? Councillor Welton, seconder on that. We'll get to that in a second. Seconder on that, Councillor McDonald. Comments, questions?
Through you, sir, can you confirm something about this being quite one of the first ones? And should we maybe have a plaque just sharing that going forward? Is that correct about the church?
Sorry, one of the first.
Is this one of the first churches?
I think we have a few designated churches.
Oh, we do. I thought that this was one of our earlier ones.
Fergus.
In Fergus?
There are a few that aren't designated
as
well.
Oh, no, it's designated.
Oh, okay. Sorry, incorrected. So it would be the first designated church in Fergus, and we have one designated in Elora.
Great. I wonder if we shouldn't make note of that. It's a pretty big deal for that church.
Yes, Councillor Adams.
Thank you, through you. I think when there was in the application for the development beside the church, there was talk in that development about the stone wall, and I think the stone wall is included in this designation. Will that affect that development there at all?
Sorry, I'm just going to pull up my report. So in our statement of value, we've made note that the stone wall fence along the south and west perimeter of the property is included, but I believe the intent is to permit the alteration of the very end of it to move forward without a heritage permit, if that happens after designation.
Any other comments, questions as it relates to this one? So we had a mover and a seconder. All those in favor? So move. Thank you. Is that everyone now? Okay. Thank you for that. Thank you for assisting me in getting through those ones. So now we're going to move down to consideration of reports, and we're going to talk right now about the municipal accommodation tax, and Dan Wilson will meet at the lectern here.
Thank you, Mayor Waters. This report is in relation to an update to our municipal accommodation tax implementation. As you will recall, on April 28th of this year, Council approved an implementation plan for putting a MAT in place. That recommendation had Council agree in principle that a municipal accommodation tax is required and that an implementation approach be approved. That approach was a 4-step process. Step 1, which we're here to discuss today, is determine the appropriate structure for a municipal service corporation that would administer the MAT. Step 2 would be to prepare the legislated required case study to establish a municipal service corporation. Step 3 is to conduct community engagement on the MAT process as well as the municipal service corporation. And step 4 is prepare the necessary documents, bylaws, and agreements and move forward with the corporation and the MAT tax. So in line with this overall process, staff issued a request for proposal to assist with this process. Linton Consulting Services was a successful proponent. We've been working with Kelly Linton and his team on step 1. Step 1, which is the appropriate structure for the Municipal Service Corporation. We have the draft report in front of you today. So I'm going to ask Kelly Linton to come forward and present his report, and I will be up after his presentation with next steps. Thank you.
Welcome, Kelly, and it's nice to have you back in these chambers.
Moving in here. Do I have to do anything here? I'm good. You guys are so sophisticated now. Well, Mayor Waters, members of council, it's nice to be here tonight. I have 12 years of memories in this room. My view, my perspective is a little different right now, so it's a little weird for me, I have to say. I have about a 20-minute presentation, give or take, that provides an executive summary of the final report. The 93-page final report. So I'm going to go through that, and then any questions that you have about either the executive summary or the full report, I'm here to answer whatever you have. So, oh yes, well, I'm going to do this right. I like to be in control. Okay, there we go. My wife knows that. To the right. Oh, just hit the button, the middle button. Okay, excuse me. So I have about 10 items that I want to go through today, beginning with the context and objectives of the project, highlight some of our findings, and then move into the recommendations and finish up with the next steps. There we go. So a little bit of context first. Over the last decade, Centre Wellington has made some pretty impressive strides when it comes to economic development and tourism. A couple highlights: the 56-acre township-owned business park, comprehensive destination marketing project And currently, the economic development and tourism are in separate departments, as you know, but the interdependence of economic development and tourism suggests the need to revisit this model. So that was part of the project that we did, part of the scope that we did with this project. As Dan mentioned, Township Council on April the 28th agreed in principle to establishing a municipal accommodation tax, I'll call it MAT from now on, and the required municipal service corporation, I'll call it an MSC from now on. And so this is the project to move forward on that. In addition, I know that you just received the draft report of a 20-year economic development and tourism strategy. And that includes a preliminary recommendation to implement MAT through an MSC. So we're in line with that, and the two things go hand in hand. So the purpose of this project is to consider the creation of an MSC to administer a MAT program and position the township to attract jobs, encourage investment, and optimize tourism. So there's two streams of work that we did. The comparative review to identify trends and best practices. And the second one was to take a look at the governance and organizational structure to review and redesign the organizational structure. So it wasn't all me. I'm going to be doing the presentation tonight, but I had a great team to work with on this project. I had Ian Duff and Kevin McPhillips from McSweeney and Associates. They're a premier economic development and tourism company. They've done work all across Canada, and their expertise was really critical to identifying best practices. I also had Andy Goldie, you might remember, I'm not sure. He was our municipal operations expert, so he brought a lot of history to the table as well. Craig Dyer, who is the former treasurer for the County of Wellington and the CFO for the region of Waterloo, and he knows a thing or two about financial accountability and finances and governance. So they were great. We were a great team together. And as a project lead, I spent the last 25 years doing organizational design projects. Primarily with municipal governments across Canada, but this one in my hometown is especially special for me. And I only have a 2-minute commute, so that was kind of nice for a change. So the project had really aggressive timelines. I signed the deal on June the 27th, and the idea was to have it done end of September, and we're at the end of September. So on time, on budget, 4 phases, launch, review, design, and build. Included input from members of council really quickly in the process. That was absolutely critical to get your initial thoughts on this project, because we didn't want to go down a path that council wasn't comfortable with, because at the end of the day, you have to sign off this, and this has to be your plan. So in addition to input from members of council, senior management team, sessions with the senior management team, and targeted managers involved in economic development and tourism, I think a couple of them are behind me right now. So first thing that we wanted to do is we had to identify who is currently involved in economic development and tourism related activities at the town, because that's absolutely critical. When we move towards a future state organizational model, we have to know what we're moving from. And we have to make sure that we tie that back to individuals whose part of their job is doing economic development type things and tourism type things. So this is really critical. You see on bottom there's a little yellow box that says final report. So that just triggers you to additional information on this one summary slide in the final report. So there's significant work that was done. Andy did most of the work on this current assessment piece of things. And the estimated average of time spent on economic development and tourism, that came from one-on-one interviews, just having conversations. There's nothing really scientific about it. We just wanted to get a sense of what percentage of people's time is being spent on the in-scope activities that we were involved in here. So that was the current state. We wanted to make sure that we did that. The second thing that we did is comparative practices. So there's quite a spectrum of organizational models that are used by municipalities. Most municipalities keep economic development and tourism in-house. So that's kind of what most people do, but you're seeing a larger number of municipalities moving towards either a destination marketing organization, a DMO, to handle just the tourism stuff and the MAT administration, or a full-fledged municipal service corporation corporation to handle both tourism and economic development. So we wanted to make sure that we modeled both those and presented them to council and to the senior management team, because we are seeing that in the industry. So Kevin from McSweeney pulled together a really comparative review, and you can see that a more detailed assessment on pages 52 to 82. And the focus of this review was to identify those features and characteristics that lead to success. So you don't want to get drowned in best practices and comparative analysis, because just because one other municipality is doing something does not mean it's right for Center Wellington. So we really wanted to make sure that we distilled that into, okay, so what are those features, characteristics that give the municipality success? So we came up with these seven principles. One of the findings that came out of the comparatives is that in-house economic development department, so when you have a department that looks after economic development and tourism, they typically benefit from strong integration with municipal policies and organization and core values, that kind of stuff, but they're typically slower to act. MSCs, on the other hand, are better positioned to pursue time-sensitive opportunities, negotiate with private investors, and respond more quickly to the business community. The third finding was fully autonomous staff model. So if you had the MSC and they had their own staff, and then you had the municipality with their own staff, that's like a fully autonomous staffing model. It's typically highly inefficient because you're seeing a lot of duplication of effort between the two organizations. So the principle here was a more flexible shared staffing model is preferred. MSC boards should be balanced. Members should include economic development, tourism professionals, in addition to elected officials, and with the advice support from municipal staff. So almost all of them that follow that model to some degree. Clarity and who, this is absolutely critical. Number 5, clarity in who does what is extremely important. Decision-making parameters of the MSC must be clear and well communicated. So the next piece of work is really to make sure that it's clear what the MSC is doing and what they have authority in and where they have decision-making ability and what's going to be retained by council. That's kind of the next phase of work, but we wanted to set the scene with this model. The 6th one was regular and timely communication from the MSC to council. It's a key success factor. There has to be that ongoing feedback loop between council and the MSC so that council is well aware of what's going on. And an effective approach for gathering public input is through a regular MSC reports to council. And then you can have citizens come up just like you saw tonight, delegations, and what's on the agenda is what's going on with the MSC. So you build the structure right into your current practices. So from council input, we got some really good feedback from council and really good direction from council. The first one that we got is unanimous support for implementing a MAP program. And I think I heard from all members of council that it's high time that visitors and tourists start to contribute their fair share to maintaining and improving our community infrastructure and amenities. That was for sure. Number 2, agreement that economic development and tourism fit well together. It's not working with them separate. 3 is agreement that staff capacity is an issue for both economic development and tourism, especially considering the township's current growth rate. And that did come out. I did watch your session with the economic development and tourism strategy a couple weeks ago or a week ago. I'm not sure what it was anymore. And I heard that came out of that report as well. So this is consistent with that. Agreement that the MSC should be arm's length from the township council, but a big but there. But the decision-making parameters have to be clearly defined and communicated. Recognition that there must be alignment between the townships and the MSC's priorities and values. Agreement that the MSC board should include members of council. Agreement that the MSC should provide council with regular, and we talked about quarterly updates. Feeling that it would be beneficial for the MSC to positively contribute to a working relationship with the BIAs. Some concern expressed that the tourism function should not overshadow the economic development function, because that's really easy it's really easy for that to happen. Agreement that the township's tourism product or experiences and visitor activities need to expand beyond Elora. It needs to be spread out. So really good input, really good feedback from council that got us going into this project. So we established 8 design principles, and that's basically pulling out what we heard from the comparative analysis with what we heard from council and distilling it into 7 to 8 really succinct principles. And we use these principles to develop the future state organizational model, and we use them to inform the development of the recommendations. So in the final report, pages 14 to 24 have the recommendations, and how these recommendations address each of these principles is identified in each of the recommendations, okay? Number 1, strategic alignment of goals and priorities between the municipality and the corporation. There has to be alignment. As soon as you're out of alignment, then it's a problem. Flexibility, the MSC has to have the flexibility to effectively and rapidly pursue business opportunities and make decisions within certain parameters. Effective staff sharing between the municipality and corporation, including the adopting of the township's grid compensation structure. 4 is realize synergies by clustering economic development and tourism together. Make sure you have the capacities and skills to drive both economic development and tourism. Clarity on who does what and clarity on what the decision-making authority is absolutely critical. Regular reporting to council. And 8, practical and affordable with limited organizational disruption. And I think that's a critical one. Anything can look good, any org design can look good on paper, but if it's going to be disruptive, overly disruptive to the organization, you don't really want that to happen. Okay. So let's get into the pretty picture. So here's we did 5 model options, and these were presented to the senior management team on August the 12th, and then presented to council on August the 13th. And these sessions were independent of each other. And at both sessions, both council and the senior management team selected this model as the one that was preferred. And we had some really, really good discussion. I love these sessions. We had some really good discussion, great questions being asked, and good discussion from councillors and from the senior management team. It is important to have those sessions separate from each other because you have different roles. Like you have council has a governance role, so they have a different perspective, and staff has an operational role, so they have to feel a sense of comfort that it's actually going to operationally work. So we needed to have both those sessions, and it was good that we kind of came to a consensus on this. So 5 model options were presented, and you can see those model options on pages 83 to 93. And following the following recommendations put into actions, this model here, the Future State Municipal Service Corporation model. And I wanted just to touch on, while we have the picture up, I wanted to touch on some of the features. So as you can see with this model, it pulls together economic development into a 100% township-owned arm's-length corporation. There's a board of directors to provide direction and oversight and governance. 4, a full-time staff. Of these, 2 are revised current township positions, and 2 are new positions. All positions would remain township staff. An executive director would report directly to the board with operational accountability to the CAO. So making sure that we have an arm's length, but it's still integrated to some degree into the organization. And then on the left-hand side, all township departments, especially community services and planning and development, will continue to work with and support the MSC on an ongoing basis. So that's that, when we talked about that shared staffing model, that's the shared staffing model. So as you can see on there, there's the stars represent 2 new positions, and the triangles represent the revised position. So the recommendations I split into 4 different types. Governance recommendations. So according to the Municipal Act, there's specific requirements when you're setting up an MSC, and they're governance related, ensures that the processed MSC is compliant with all these statutory requirements. So these recommendations talk to that. people recommendations. So implementing the preferred future state model requires some organizational change and reconfiguration and new and revised positions. So those are in the people recommendations. The process recommendations are the actions that need to be taken to ensure effective day-to-day operations and efficient workflows between the township and the MSC. And then the financial recommendations. As the sole shareholder of the MSC, the township retains financial control. These recommendations introduce mechanisms to ensure appropriate financial accountability and reporting. So I'm just going to touch on each of the recommendations. In the final report, there's a page for every recommendation, and it includes more detailed action items. It includes how each recommendation meets the design principles, as well as implementation considerations, but I've just pulled it up for the sake of this presentation. So recommendation 1, implement the duties of a municipality. That's how it's phrased in the Municipal Act and the regulations, to complete a business case study. And then it includes consulting with the public about the proposal to establish an MSC and administer a MAP program. So recommendation 1 is to do what the Municipal Act says that you need to do, which includes those things. Recommendation 2 is to then build a MSC terms of reference that's consistent with the above business case study that further defines the MSC's authority, operations, financial framework, outlines how it will interact and connect with the township residents and businesses. So this is the clarity I was talking about. And that's something that has to be done once you've completed the business case. And then the next thing is recommendation 3, Township CAO and Chief Human Resources Officer, CHRO, in consultation with the mayor, initiate a transparent and public application process to establish a skills-based MSC board of directors. And then after you do put the board in place, the next recommendation is formalize a quarterly reporting process with the executive director coming to council and talking about providing a summary of revenues, expenses, and highlight what's going on. So activities and milestones. And then the public have the opportunity to, with appropriate meeting notice, and come and do delegations at that point. So those are the 4 governance recommendations. The next 4 recommendations are related to people. So the first one is upgrade the current manager economic development position to become the executive director. So this position would report to the board of directors with an operational accountability of the township CAO. The executive director will be responsible to establish and achieve the strategic goals, priorities, manage economic development and tourism activities and staff, including the administration of the MAP program. The MSC board, with the advice and support of CAO and the CHRO, will advertise and fill that position. Recommendation 6 is transition the coordinator of tourism from currently Community Services Department to become the tourism officer. And that individual will be there to oversee and expand and enhance Center Wellington's tourism product, visitor experience, positive community relations. And that person will be the primary day-to-day point of contact for tourism-focused groups and associations, as well as the primary day-to-day contact to township staff for tourism and MAT-related activities. So everything related to tourism, reporting in from the coordinator into the executive director. Recommendation 7, create an economic development position to oversee the economic development portion of this portfolio, including business retention, expansion, investment, entrepreneurship, innovation, workforce attraction, employment, marketing, sales, partners, collaboration, everything related to the economic development part, reporting in to the executive director. Recommendation 8 is the last staff person there, create a coordinator, tourism and economic development, reporting into the executive director. Position would support both economic development and tourism and be the primary point person for coordinating all downtown beautification, maintenance, business support activities. So anything related to downtown, this coordinator is the primary point of contact for the BIAs. So this was trying to make sure that we pull that in and make sure that there's a connection, a physical person that connects the tourism piece with the economic development piece, especially for the downtowns. We have process recommendations. So this is really important. It's create a service level agreement between the township and the MSC. So this defines the performance standards, responsibilities, who's going to be doing what. It'll be the framework outlining the specific service standards from both sides. And it will ensure that there's operational workflows in targeted areas where the township and the MSC share responsibilities. A perfect example is festivals, events, where you're going to continue to have community services involved in. Okay, so who's doing what? So there needs to be, those workflows need to be worked out. That's what has to come in the next phase of work. But the SLA, the service level agreements, sets the foundation for that. 2 financial recommendations here. One is establish a sustainable revenue stream for the MSC through MAT revenues, percentage of paid parking revenues, and 3% of the municipal share of the OLG revenue. So that's your current township policy. This is, the numbers here are up to council. This was outside the scope of this project to figure out the numbers. The numbers are up to council. So what, typically a MAT is, anywhere between 3 and 6 and sometimes higher. Most regularly it's 4%, but that's something that council has to determine. In addition to the parking side, council has to figure out what those revenues are. We've tried to make sure you have an understanding of what the expenses are on the staffing side, so you know what this has to cover for sure. Recommendation 11 is to decision that the Township of Center Wellington will initially retain ownership of all property and assets, including the current business park and downtown Laura Tourism Office, but to review this arrangement after a year of MSC operation. So this is to try to keep things fairly simple at the beginning, because you have a really good process already that you've delegated to the CAO for the sale of land. So the MSC would be involved in the marketing and that kind of stuff, but the township would retain ownership of the property and the land. Okay. That's the recommendation. So that's all. The 11 recommendations. Next steps. Next step is council approval of the model, and then moving ahead with recommendation 10, figuring out the revenue stream, and then each of the recommendations are kind of in sequence there. The phase 1 implementation is really implementing recommendations 1 to 7 and 9. And then phase 2 capacity building is to implement recommendation 8, which is the coordinator economic development and tourism. There's a lot of discussion about, we wanted to make sure that the other positions were in place first to make sure that you actually need that coordinator. And I think that's wise. So we put that off kind of between 6 months and a year. And then the last phase is really to review and assess the service level agreement, make sure if there's any changes required after you've been operating for some time, as well as assess the property ownership model to see if there's enough flexibility still built within the MSC that they can still do really good work while the township owns the property. So just the high level costing, really in the first phase, there's two major costs there. An upgrading a current position from a grade 12 to a grade 14 to pull in an executive director. And then the economic development officer, it's kind of we estimate it to be a grade 10. And that includes 35% benefits, but nothing else. Just the benefits and the compensation are in that number there. So that's the first phase, is to build that foundation and put in place the MSC. And then phase 2, the cost there is the additional coordinator of economic development and tourism, the one that's going to look after the downtown side of things. And we're estimating that to be about a grade 8. And that's the compensation plus 35% benefits total there. And then the enhanced part, that's internal resources to do a review. I don't anticipate that you need to go out to get some help with that. This is kind of an internal review, so there wouldn't be outside costs related to that. So just to wrap up, we worked really hard with your team to build what we think is a made in Center Wellington solution to accomplish a few things. It clusters together economic development and tourism, ensures that the municipality continues to be financially accountable through 100% township ownership and a shared staffing model. So it's still connected to the township. It builds in flexibility to rapidly pursue investment opportunities, establish relations, and make business deals. It adds capacity to ensure that you have positions in place to get the work done. And it provides a not-for-profit entity to administer the MAT program to ensure that visitors pay their fair share to maintain and improve our local assets and infrastructure. So on behalf of my team, thanks for the opportunity to work with you on this assignment. It was a great working relationship that we had, and I'm good to answer whatever questions that you have.
Okay, Dan, did you want to, or just open up for, yeah, okay. So Dan, yes, please.
Thank you, Mayor Waters. And just to wrap things up, staff are very excited about the positive direction forward that this staff outlines, and we were very happy to see council choose the same scenario as the senior management team. So that just shows that we're in alignment with the best way forward for this municipal service corporation, taking into account both economic development and tourism needs of our community. What we're looking for from council today is approval of the structure that has been proposed through the Linton Consulting Services report. We're looking for approval to move forward to the next few phases of the MAT implementation, namely an engagement approach to discuss this with residents and the business community around how we intend to implement a MAT as well as form a municipal service corporation. We want to start drafting the necessary articles of incorporation, bylaws, and agreements as mentioned by Kelly, and that would require the assistance of both Kelly's team and the township's lawyer. We also need a little bit more funding to finalize this project to get the necessary legal review and the required engagement. So we're asking for a top up to the project. And we will report back to council with the case study, articles of incorporation, agreements, before we obviously establish the municipal service corporation. So there'll be at least one other touch point on the agreements themselves, and then obviously touch points through the budget process as well. So with that, happy to take any questions.
Okay, well, thank you, Kelly and Dan. Okay, opened opportunity for council to ask questions of either Kelly or Dan or staff. Go ahead, Councillor McDonald.
My first question, Mayor Waters, might be for the clerk. Can you correct me? We got to the MAT tax through our STR discussion. Is that correct? And then we decided we would like to do the MAT as well.
Oh, I'm gonna refer that to the CAO, how we got things started.
I feel like we were talking about STRs and then the MAT came up and then we pushed this through, but we haven't pushed through the STR yet. So I'm just wondering if it can be encompassed in some sort of way.
Yeah. Through Mayor Waters, we initially had it in the strategic plan to investigate a MAT first. Then there was a notice of motion from council to accelerate the short-term rental discussion. That, while it was under progress, we also brought forward the MAT implementation plan where we could move forward in parallel, looking at MAT and short-term rentals at the same time. And with council's decision to take a pause on short-term rentals, and we're going to be doing a workshop later this year on short-term rentals, we're still hoping this can move forward in parallel. We will be working on the MAT implementation this fall going into next year. So we're hoping we can still implement both at the same time, but that'll be up to council's discretion.
Thank you so much. That's actually very helpful. And a follow-up. Actually, not a follow-up, another question. Okay, when I look at the staff cost estimates, you have the ED officer and you have the executive director, is there not a way to combine those and the ED officer also supports the board? I have seen that in other board models, so I just asked that.
Do you want to well, I guess you don't really need to put it back up. It's all just capacity. Like I think you need capacity, and you can combine whatever positions you want. But if it's not going to add the capacity, you're going to be in the same situation as you are right now, where you have a pretty aggressive economic development and tourism strategy right now. Like there's a lot there, and you won't be able to get through it if you don't have the capacity to do it. And so really, executive director's position is really to make sure that the economic development piece and the tourism piece all go together, and that there's right kind of focus for each function, and then making sure that the executive director then reports back to the board and to council on what's going on and what the key performance metrics are. But to do the actual work, I feel like you really need somebody dedicated on the tourism side, and you need somebody dedicated on the economic development side.
I agree. I feel like other municipality economic development officers might find this appealing. So thank you.
Councillor Evoy.
Through you, sir, I have two questions. You guys go around and I'll come back to the second one. The first one is mostly to also help, thanks Kelly so much for all your hard work on this, also to help people who are hearing about this for the first time. Is there a space, to clarify, is there a space that if any council finds the direction, we've empowered the MSC, but if there's something that's coming up that council disagrees with, is there any space, any lane for council to step in and go, wait a minute, this is going against what we stand for. We don't actually think this aligns with our strat plan, or whatever the case may be. I just feel like I would be more comfortable if there were a fail-safe.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, and it's one that all councillors will have at some level, because you've been elected as a legitimate community leaders. So there needs to be those fail-safes. So you have a few. The first one that you have is to make sure that operational accountability still goes from the executive director to the CAO, and the CAO is still your only employee. Right. The second thing is that you have the ability on an annual basis to approve or not approve the budget that comes through. Right. So you are going to set the parameters, and the next phase of work needs to do a really good job at setting those decision-making parameters. So you set things up. The foundation is set so that the chances of you disagreeing with something are lessened, but there always is that opportunity. In addition to the fact that executive director is going to have to come here every quarter and talk to you about what's been happening, how revenues are being used, and how expenses are being managed. And so you're always going to have that touch point back. So I think we've built in enough of those fail safes to make it so that council, even though council is not going to have operational oversight on a day-to-day basis, you have several ways to have those kind of, you're still manning the gates. Like you're still making sure that there's a accountability there in a few different ways. So I think we covered it off.
Yep. Councillor Adams.
Thank you, through you. Just comment and then question. It was really nice to see when you went through the councillor input in the list there. I definitely saw a lot of what, like I was saying in my interviews, and it was just really nice to see that there was like so much agreement amongst council there, and then the synergy obviously between the senior management team and the models. So great work to the team, and I know it was a really tight time schedule and we're here, so that's pretty exciting. I think my question is just for Dan, and just looking to clarify the next touch point. Will we have an update on the paid parking program by that point too, prior to the next touch point that you referred to?
Through the direction of council, staff are actively working towards the implementation of a paid parking. In terms of an update prior to go live, I'm not sure that there was anything really in place for council to come back with to kind of define what that would look like. But if it is the will of council, we certainly can.
More, do we have an estimated go live, I guess, would be the question.
At this point, we haven't got a definitive go live date. We are still working through some of the logistics, and as you can appreciate, it is a bit of a fulsome process with a number of different moving parts. So we are actively still working towards that. We do have regular touch points in community meetings internally, so we are still working towards an end, but we just don't know exactly what that is.
Through Mayor Waters, there will be a strategic touch point with council on paid parking, and that council needs to decide what the funding is to be used for going forward. This report suggests that a portion could go towards economic development and tourism, but obviously there's other needs of the township, so that'll be a strategic direction of council in the future.
Councillor Wilton.
Thank you, Mayor Waters, and thank you, Kelly, and that was a great report. And I am impressed by the timeline, so good job on getting it done so quickly. Appreciate that. I'm just curious, because I guess I was one of the people expressing some concern about economic development getting a little bit lost in the tourism world. And just curious if you saw in your comparative models, like how other municipalities might have approached that and made sure that other things like manufacturing, bringing knowledge-based skills companies to the township, other types of industries. Were there any really good examples in how, maybe not specific examples, but just ways to manage that, that both of those files? Thank you.
Yeah, it's a good question for sure. I think one of the ways that they've done it is making sure that their board composition is well balanced, so that you have the different industries covered off. So I picture the next phase of work pulling together a skills matrix, and so that you make sure that it's not just you have economic development folks on there, you have tourism folks. If you can get some that are both, that'd be great. So that's one thing. I think if the board is constantly in the face of the executive director, what are we doing on this side? I think that's going to balance things off really effectively, especially if you get some really good community focused members on that board. It really can give a kind of a holistic feel to that board of directors. So I think that process of pulling together a really good skills-based board is going to be critical. The second thing is with the executive director, making sure that they're not just strong on the one side. Like, they need to have some real strong quals when it comes to economic development and tourism. So I think that when you go out with a kind of a job description, and this process, it has a bit of a job design. So there's the things that it has to do, but choosing that position wisely, I think is absolutely critical to help on that front.
Councillor Evoy.
Thank you again, through you, sir. Just a quick comment before I get to my question. When I look at this, I would like to think that we can write into this in some way, that we will make sure, and I say this very carefully, that we will make sure that council and CAO have an opportunity to discuss in a safe space, whether that's a workshop or whatever it is, to make sure that these discussions can happen in a fulsome fashion in the early days, to make sure that that two-way clarity is happening. Because I think, in fairness to all of us, that would feel like a good idea, to make sure that we know what's happening while it's rolling out. I just think regular communication is going to be really important. So whatever that looks like, I'd like to know if we can write that into the rollout of it.
Well, I'm going to say something, then I'll pass it off to Dan with the workshop idea and that kind of stuff. But if we do our job right in the next phase of work, and we pull together a terms of reference that's really detailed, that really spells out what the decision-making authority of the MSC is and what the township retains, that's huge. And then the second thing that staff have to understand is that service level agreement, where it's clear on what the town departments are still going to bring to the table and what's going to be on the to-do list for these four members of the MSC, right? So that's another piece of work that's going to happen in the next phase. And so that's going to have to come to council. So that discussion will have to happen for you to approve it at the end of the day anyway. So that's That's how it'll be kind of documented, which I think is better than just communication.
Sure. Sorry.
Through Mayor Waters, I completely agree. Communication is key for this, and it's communication with council and myself, but it's also communication with the other operational departments of the township. There has to be a seamless transition of who's providing what service between the township department and the MSC. So we're going to be setting up the service agreement, the budget approval process, the strategic planning to ensure that we can ensure effective communication.
Thank you. That was my comment. If you could stay there, it's probably through you, sir. It's probably relevant for you to stay there. Although this is just our first layout, and I understand we're not getting into the weeds or the operations of it. I looked over at Pat, and I thought about what that role does and what community services does. And I'm not sure I ever asked the question about community services and that role and decision making from that lens and how that affects. Does she go, like, say Bissell Park? Let's not even say Bissell Park. Let's say the ice rink in Bissell Park. That can be considered both a tourist item and a community services item. And I don't remember us having any real clarity on not just with whom she speaks or answers to, because ultimately it's the CAO, but where do those discussions happen, and how are we confident that they're landing for the people and not for tourism?
Through Mayor Waters, this is something that we've been discussing a lot through this phase one with Kelly's team, and it's not just about processes involving community services, but what about planning and development, infrastructure services? And what we would do in the next phase of the MAT implementation is work with Kelly's team to process map everything that's going on that may touch economic development or tourism. And then we need to figure out what will be the responsibility of the township going forward and what will be the responsibility of the MSC going forward to make sure that we all know our roles going forward. I don't know if Kelly wants to elaborate on that.
I don't really need to, because you said what I would have said. It was perfect. Like, I think it has to get to that level of detail that you're thinking about, right? Like, it has to get, so the people who have to be involved in these process mapping session are the staff that do the work. So I think that's going to be kind of that next step. It's fine to say, set roles and responsibilities, but when you're taking like an event, for example, a specific event or a festival, okay, so where's the handoff? Like, who initiates it? How's promotion done? And so we have to do this session where you have the people in the room and kind of have to map out, okay, who's doing what? You don't want duplication of effort. You're way too lean of a team to have duplication of effort. So you have to figure out what the handoffs are. You have to figure out what the detailed roles and responsibilities are, so to make sure that everybody's kind of rowing in the same direction. So that's the piece of work that has to happen. So I've done that kind of work with municipalities too, like detailed process mapping, and you involve the staff that are actually doing the work.
My final comment through you, sir, is as long as we're making sure that the people come first, even before our tourists.
Okay, any other comments, questions? Yes, Councillor Jefferson.
Thank you, Mayor Waters. I'm just wondering with like the recommendation number 10, establishing the sustainable revenue stream, are we feeling that the MSC is going to be like totally independent financially from the township with that revenue stream, or is it looking that we will have to be doing like taxpayer subsidies to keep it, or is it always going to be connected financially to us? I don't know if that makes.
You take that one, yeah. There's one.
Through Mayor Waters, what I anticipate happening is the township currently has an economic development budget and a tourism budget. That would be funding that the township, through a service agreement, would allocate to the MSC. And then we would talk about ways to layer in the MAT tax and maybe some other funding, like maybe paid parking comes into this in some form or fashion. But that will be a conversation probably post 2026 budget. We'll set the 2026 budget from a township perspective, assuming that economic development and tourism are staying status quo. And then when we get closer to implementation, we would talk about how we were going to combine those budgets, transition them to the MSC, and what does that combined budget look like. But the service agreement between the township and the MSC will outline, we will give you these budgets, but here's the service you're going to provide.
Any other comments or questions for council? Okay. Well, thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate all your efforts here. Kelly, it's nice to have you back here and appreciate the work of your team. So I'll read the recommendation that the Council Township of Centre Wellington approves the Municipal Service Corporation structure for economic development and tourism services outlined in Linton Consulting Services, Inc. report included in Report CAO 2025-18, and that the Council approves proceedings to the community engagement preparing the required case study to establish a municipal service corporation and to begin preparation of the necessary articles of incorporation, bylaws, and agreement, and that council approves the funding increase for the municipal accommodation tax implementation project outline in Report CAO 2025-18, and then that council directs staff to report back to council with engagement results, a draft case study, a draft bylaws, and draft agreements prior to formally establishing a municipal service corporation. Okay, so do I have a mover for that? Councillor Wilton, seconder on that. Councillor McDonald. Further comments, questions? Councillor Wilton.
Thank you, Mayor Waters. Just one quick comment. I think everybody, but the staff in particular, and Kelly as well as the consulting team, I think the whole team, should be really excited about this moment because it's a really big deal to move forward on a municipal accommodation tax for the Township of Centre Wellington. And I think it's really important that we start to look at how we can make sure that tourism starts to pay for some of the costs of tourism, but that we're also putting more of a focus on economic development as well. So I just want to thank the whole team for bringing this forward and getting to this point. So thank you.
Thank you for that. So we had a mover, a seconder. All those in favor? That's so moved. Let's just take or do you want me to do this one? First. I'll do this first. Okay. Yeah. I know. That the Council of the Township of Centre Wellington, in accordance with Section 7.7, Procedure Bylaw 2025-65, having reached the 3-hour maximum of council meeting, hereby extend the meeting curfew by an hour to 9 p.m. Okay. Now I'm going to ask, do we want 5 minutes, just break, and then we'll go back into it. 11.2? Okay. Just one more wafer. Okay.
Did you get a mover in a second?
Yeah, there is a mover. Yes, okay. Seconder, Councillor McDonald. All those in favor? So moved. Okay, so 11.2, Elora Fergus Market exemption. I'll just read the recommendation that the Council of Township Centre Wellington approves the request for the Elora Market Farmers Market to permit alcohol sampling at Bissell Park in Elora, subject to provisions for the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario, AGO, and the Township Alcohol Risk Management Policy in compliance with Safe Service Plan outlined in CS 2025-31, and that the Council of Township Centre Wellington delegates authority to the Managing Director of Community Service to annually review and approve future requests from the Elora Farmers Market for a vendor alcohol sampling in Bissell Park. Welcome. Yes.
Can we just have a mover and a seconder? And
yeah, I can do that. Yeah, we can do that. Councillor Wilton. Councillor McDonald. Okay. Well, yeah, we still have questions. Yes. Yeah. Comments, questions. Yeah, we're rolling all right. So, okay. Yes.
Because I would like a break. I'll make it really quick. We're already sampling alcohol there. Is this just a renewal?
Through you, Mayor Waters. So it was happening. We were not aware that it was happening necessarily. And then, so now we're just trying to bring this back to be compliant.
Great. Yeah. I thought it was a great idea. Thank you.
Councillor Jefferson.
Thank you, Mayor Waters. So then the special occasion permit for the sampling, is that being held by the market themselves or the individual vendors have to have that?
Right. So through you, it would be the vendors that have their license, and then it is just allowing it on our property in Bissell Park.
Okay. Go ahead, Councillor Jefferson.
Thank you, Mayor Waters. So then will we be adding Bissell Park to our list under the alcohol risk management facilities? Like, we've got the few halls in that listed. Will we be adding Bissell Park as one?
So right now, what we're saying is it would be designated authority to the managing director to look at every year to make sure that it is that what they're compliant, that they're doing a good job of it, and adhering to the regulations, and would ask for another year of renewal of it. But staff are working on the municipal alcohol policy, and that is something that we will come back to council to approve.
Sorry, thank you. So just updating this, like the whole policy itself is going under review for an update?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Evelyn?
Thank you. Through you, just very quickly on the same, well, we're on the same thing. Are we limiting, is there discussion around whether or not you could have one or three? I mean, we have to also be cognizant of drinking. And if there's more than one or two places and someone else doesn't know, when we look at Safe Serve, or I forget what it's called now, Smart Serve, whether or not somebody has gone to 2 or 3 different locations and done a single tester. So I'm curious about what we're looking at from a Smart Serve lens and whether or not we're limiting how many places can be in one space.
So the staff that are a part of those alcohol serving samples are all Smart Serve trained, and they currently don't have more than 2 or 3, and they are
different restaurants.
No, different distilleries, wineries, or cider houses, and sometimes it depends on the week if everybody is able to make it, or and they are very small samples. I had it in the report.
I believe in the report, it's normally would it be a 4-ounce serving if they're giving out 1 ounce. So it's a much reduced service level. And these are the manufacturers of the alcohol. They're not serving cocktails in Bissell Park. They are serving small samples to taste if you would like to buy their wine or the distilled alcohol or whatever it is. So it has been going on. If you visit other manufacturers, they often have these kinds of samplings, and it is would be very. We don't control how many are at the Elora Farmers Market. That is up to them. But obviously, they don't want too many competing of the same.
Right.
Okay. Any further comments or questions? We had a first and seconder. All those in favor? So moved. Thank you very much for your presentation. And we'll have just a 5-minute break. Okay, welcome back. 11.3 zoning amendment, RZ05 2025 decision report, 6949 Wellington Road, Nickel, and who is going, you're back up here again. Yes, thank you for hanging in with us.
Mayor Waters, members of council, through you, the application before you is a zoning bylaw amendment to implement zoning regulations necessary to establish a shop for the repair and maintenance of farm drainage equipment as an agricultural related use on the property municipally known as 6949 Wellington Road 7, Nickel. The subject property is approximately 4.5 hectares in size with 455 meters of frontage along Highway 7, just south of the hamlet of Alma. It currently contains a single detached dwelling and accessory buildings that support a livestock operation. The applicant is seeking for certain lands to be rezoned from A, agricultural to A, agricultural exception to facilitate the proposed use. The proposal includes a 10,800 square foot building and outdoor storage associated with the farm drainage business. It will otherwise meet zoning requirements. Detailed design requirements will be addressed through future site plan application. The public meeting was held on August 25th, 2025. One member of the public made oral submission and also submitted comments in writing, concerns mainly related to notification of the adjacent municipality, threats to water quality, drainage, and fuel storage. Comments were also received from GRCA and County Planning and Roads staff, which are appended to the report. Planning staff have carefully considered public and agency comments received on this application and are of the opinion that concerns have been adequately addressed or will be addressed through the future site plan process. For the reasons outlined in the report, staff recommend that the proposed zoning bylaw amendment be approved, and I'm happy to answer any questions. And we also have the applicant and owners of the farm drainage business in attendance as well.
Questions, comments for Deanna? Councillor McDonald.
Through you, Mayor Waters. This is a good site for this operation because it's near County Road 7 corridor. And I suspect it's because of weight load of the equipment. Is that true?
I can't really speak to that, but I'm wondering if maybe the owners of the business want to speak to why they prefer to be located on a major road.
Welcome. If you could just state your name and your affiliation with the business.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. I'm Dwayne Martin. I am not the owner. I'm a project manager from the general contractor they hired to bring the proposal together. And our planner is here in attendance as well. Dan Fry, the owner himself, wasn't able to attend, but his son Justin is here. So to answer that question on the weight limit, you're correct. The equipment that they are moving in and out, not all of it, but a number of pieces of the equipment would not comply to a half load road or a limited load road, especially in limited seasons. And so one of the main purposes of choosing this property was exactly that it is on a county road that is accessible in the spring season.
Just for follow-up, with the fuel on site, you need the fuel on site, and it's not going to be a lot, is it?
No. So the fuel tanks are for their own equipment, and all diesel equipment that's operated off-road is allowed to use diet diesel, which has the road tax exempt from it, which is not accessible at the pumps. And so that's the primary reason for having fuel tanks. They will also have regular diesel and regular gasoline for their own equipment.
Thank you to you, sir. And thank you for answering my questions. And thank you to our planner. I am satisfied. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions from council as it relates to this item? Okay, I'll read the recommendation that the Council of Township of Centre Wellington approves application RZ05 25 for zoning bylaw amendment and gives 3 readings to the necessary bylaw. So do I have a mover on that? Councillor Wilton, seconder on that. Councillor Jefferson. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? So moved. Thank you. We'll move down to item 11.4, Business Park House demolition, and I see George approaching the lectern. Welcome, George.
Thank you, Mayor Waters and members of council. To briefly summarize, the direction of council back on July 14th was to obviously approved by the recommendation that came out of the Economic Prosperity and Growth Committee. Secondly, to direct staff to complete a designated substance audit for the house and the adjacent shed. And lastly, direct staff to return with a full project update and budget for council's consideration, which is built in the report. And you've been part of that discussion, I believe, in September, part of the capital budget for up to $50,000. In addition, it was also tabled at the Heritage Committee. Heritage Center Wellington Committee on September 9th. There was discussion about the uniqueness of it. However, it did not meet 2 of the criteria, which is the new requirement under the Ontario Heritage Act. It only met 1. Therefore, the committees proposed that with the recommendation that they demolish the house, give the demolish of the house and the outstanding building in the business park, and there will be some documentation and salvage plan to see what can be restored or kept, as well as they would be removed from the Municipal Heritage Register. And that's basically the proposal when you have the financial implications and the recommendation before you.
Thank you, George. Comments, questions from council? Okay, and I'll read the recommendation that the Council of Township of Centre Wellington confirms that it does not oppose the demolition of the structure located at 6518 First Line, Fergus, listed on the Township Municipal Heritage Register, and that the property municipally known as 6518 First Line, Fergus, be removed from the Township Municipal Heritage Registry prior to demolition. Do you have a mover for that? Councillor Wilton, seconder of that. Councillor Evoy. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? So move. Thank you, George. We'll now move down to item 11.5, 2026 equipment order, and I see Colin right there. So fire away, Colin.
All right. Thank you, Mayor Waters, and to members of council. So this is the purpose of this report is to award a new articulated sidewalk tractor to McLean Engineering of Owen Sound at an upset limit of $186,173.74. And essentially, the process that we followed here, in our vehicle and equipment replacement schedules in the budget, we had one tractor due for replacement this year, another tractor due for replacement in 26. We tendered the one for this year earlier this year and have awarded that. We had some provisions in the contract stating that that we'd be interested in the vendor holding their prices if they were interested, and with the option of ordering the 2026 tractor. And so we've confirmed with the vendor, McLean Engineering, that they are willing to hold their pricing and deliver the 2026 unit. So it would effectively kind of lock in that unit for the 2026 budget. So it's kind of like a pre-approval in effect for 2026, but it gets one of the tractors out of our circulation. They said they would have this one ready. The delivery date would be kind of mid-January, so in time for the winter season. And in terms of the fleet, these tractors operate very well. Staff, our operators, do appreciate these machines. They're very efficient. They move through the sidewalk network quite efficiently, and staff support the award to McLean Engineering. So happy to answer any questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Colin. Councillor McDonald.
I'm going to support this simply for the fact I have residents reach out to me saying, Lisa, can we get them to come by like more often? I imagine our tractors really had a good time last winter because it was a very heavy winter. And my response to some of the residents always is, we're so lucky to have them because a lot of municipalities don't have them. So I support this, of course. I don't like the price tag, but thank you.
Councillor Adams.
Thank you. I thought you must left out the best part of this report is that by buying now, we actually saved $23,826 than waiting next year to purchase it. So good adding that in there. Yeah, great.
Any other comments, questions from council? Okay. Thank you, Colin, for that. I'll read the recommendation that the Council of Township of Centre Wellington authorize award for the purchase of one new articulate sidewalk tractor to McLean Engineering and Manufacturing Co. of Owen Sound, Ontario, at an upset limit of $186,173.74, inclusive of non-rebate HST, and that the Council authorize funding from the 2026 Vehicle and Equipment Replacement Reserve to facilitate the purchase in 2025, and that the Council directs staff to update the 2026 capital budget accordingly. So mover on that. Councillor Jefferson, seconder on that, Councillor McDonald. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? So moved. Thank you, Council. Move down to item 11.6, Housing Needs Assessment Follow-Up Report, and Brett is here to speak to that.
Thank you, Mayor Waters. As you know, we have a housing supply crisis in Ontario and in Centre Wellington, and we have a lack of creation of new, more affordable or attainable housing. And in July, we brought forward to Council a housing needs assessment, and that housing needs assessment makes recommendations for actions going forward. And when we brought that forward in July, we told Council that we would do a follow-up report on how we might move on some of the recommendations from the housing needs assessment. So we prepared a report. I'm not going to go through it all, but we've summarized things that the province has done. We've summarized things that the previous term of council have done related to housing, and we've identified some things that this council term we've done. And, you know, I think the conclusion is still here we are after many initiatives that have kind of frittered away at things. We still have a housing affordability problem. And so there's more that we need to do. So the purpose of this report is to try to state that we have a role to play in the provision of housing or assisting in the provision of housing, and that we could create a housing action plan going forward to move forward in 2026 to take a more active role than we have in prior years and what we've done in the past, and that we would consider the staffing implications. There's the county funding that Councillor Ballantyne mentioned tonight. We want to take advantage of that. If there's $1 million that we can access, we don't want to be someone that said, well, we're not even going to try. And another initiative that we've seen from other municipalities is creating a specific housing advisory committee. So those are all things that we want to bring forward. The housing action plan, I think you saw at the September meeting that there's capital budget money set aside. The staffing implications will address as part of the staffing strategy, as part of the budget. So quickly, this is meant to be a framework for us to jump off and get more involved in housing. That's all.
Okay. Thank you for that, Brett. Councillor Adams.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Just want to clarify, part of the recommendation, investigate the creation of a Township Housing Advisory Committee. So this would just be investigating. We're not approving that creation. I'm just kind of cognizant that, you know, the advisory committees, well, very important to have that citizenship engagement. We've talked a lot about staff resources already, and we know that those advisory committees can pull a lot of resources. So I just want to confirm that this is investigating. We're coming back with what that would look like, or are we actually approving that with this recommendation?
I'll let Dan answer that.
Through Mayor Waters, yeah, it's purely investigated at this point. The previous report we talked about from a municipal accommodation tax perspective outlines that when a board of directors is established, the existing Economic Prosperity and Growth Advisory Committee is no longer needed. But the growth portion of economic prosperity and growth is missing. So this is where a housing committee could fill that gap. But we want to investigate what that would look like and obviously the staffing resources around administering another committee, and then we'll report back to council.
Okay, Councillor Wilton, did you have a comment? Yep, go ahead.
Yep, mainly just a comment. Thank you, Mayor Waters. Yeah, and thank you, Brett, for putting this together. I think it is good to see all those provincial policies kind of in one place like that. So that's helpful, and also what the previous council and what we've done. No, I really like this. When we were at the OSUM conference, the Ontario Small Urban Municipalities Conference back in April, I believe, we did hear from the town of Collingwood, did a really great panel on everything they've done with housing in Collingwood. And I think we're, in a way, kind of borrowing some of their best ideas in terms of township investigating. As Councillor Adams has said, the Township Housing Advisory Committee, the Collingwood Advisory Committee has done a lot of work, and some really pretty impressive work, and it's a very similar size municipality as ours. So that's really great. And I agree with that we should be trying to figure out kind of that strategic and kind of intentional way of how the township can get more involved in housing and taking advantage of things like the county's $1 million fund for lower tier municipalities. So very happy to see this report come forward. And I think it's a great next step in terms of this conversation around housing and what we can do as a lower tier municipality in Wellington County. So thank you very much. And I look forward to seeing where this goes.
Thank you, Councillor Evoy. Councillor McDonald.
Yes, I'd like to, through you, Councillor Evoy, through you, Mayor Waters. I love to watch, now I get to watch county council meetings, but out of, I think it was May or June, I think the $1 million that was earmarked for us came from Continuum of Care and our seniors. And so when we're going down this path, I still want, not all the county councillors were on board with dissolving those funds and giving it to the municipalities, because it was taking away from the essence of what those funds were meant for. So doing that, yes, we need housing. I'd like to comment on what Councillor Adams has said about the committee. I'm really not on board to starting another committee, but I really like your answer, CAO Wilson. So that suits me just fine. But as we go down this path, I look at what Guelph Aramasa just did, and pretty quick. Now they had a lodge that they added on to and was able to create it that way. So I do think if there is a developer out there willing to do something now, bring it to council. I think I would be very open to that. That said, have we had anyone approach us wanting to do?
Well, everybody wants to do lots of housing, but do they want to make it affordable? That's
affordable housing.
I think we do suspect that there will be some developments that will be eligible for the DC exemption, fortunately, and CMHC, when they fund a private project, I think there's some indication that they are requiring some of the units in those buildings to be affordable. So we are seeing some of that. I mean, obviously, Habitat for Humanity now is playing more in the attainable than the affordable, but that was a development that we approved fairly quickly. And I think that, the first phase, they're about to register that condominium plan. But the reality is, from what we're seeing, to move the needle, the kind of incentive that the municipality provides needs to get bigger than what it is right now for us. And Collingwood was an example where they told us that their subsidy for an additional dwelling unit is fairly significant. off the top of my head, I think it's something in the order of 10,000 plus the county of Simcoe adds even more if it's going to be affordable. So our current incentives are obviously much lower. And that's the kind of reality. Using municipal surplus land for housing, creating an affordable housing reserve fund. We've seen other municipalities create a housing reserve fund that a new development that may not be providing affordable housing can contribute to that housing reserve fund voluntarily. And there are other communities where the development community is willing to do that. So that might happen here too.
Councillor Yvonne.
Through you, sir. I just want to say tonight's been a great night. We started off with County Councillor Ballantyne sharing that they have 10 to 15 new spaces coming for childcare. And I was just thinking about tonight, and we're looking at the MSC, which is going to be really important to us, and the MAT tax. And now I really look forward to establishing some guidelines where we can start to really get behind as a council, establishing affordable housing for our community. I just think tonight's been a good night.
Thank you.
Any other? Yes, Councillor McDonald.
This is year 3, as being on council, and I do pay attention to our committee of adjustment, and we have definitely done a lot of infill, and I see all the applications. It's an in-law suite. Is it an in-law suite or is it an STR? And so I really think taking all that data too of how much, could some of that housing be affordable housing too, right? So I'd just like to look at it all. Thank you.
Right. Councillor Jefferson.
Thank you, Mayor Waters. So when we're looking, we're doing a lot of internal investigating and creating committees and that in-house, are we also going to be looking internally at our policies, our own policies that we have, and if we can do anything with them? Just tightening up timelines and then looking at capacity allotments and things to encourage the developers to build within a timely manner, I might say. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of things going on. Of course, we're on the cusp of our own, needing to update our own official plan. So we're going to be starting that next year. The zoning bylaw update will follow. We have the community planning system that we still want to investigate and hope those things can go on. And at the staff level, senior management working on that servicing allocation policy that'll be, you get 3 years. And if you use it or lose it. And so we're doing all those things. A big part of it, though, is I think we need to look at whether the province requires us to allow 3 units per property. And Collingwood's an example. A lot of small municipalities, similar to us, are allowing 4 units per property. And so we need to think about some of those things. And a lot of that's already in our business plan in council's strategic plan for us to keep doing that. So we've been doing it and we're going to keep at it.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Okay. Well, thank you for that, Brett. I'll read the recommendation that the Council of Township of Centre Wellington acknowledges the housing supply and affordability crisis in Ontario and supports the township having a defined role in addressing this crisis going forward, and that the township's 2026 budget and business plan incorporate the following in order to affirm the township's future role in addressing the housing supply and affordability crisis. 1, prepare a township housing action plan. 2, investigate the creation of a township housing advisory committee. 3, investigate potential applications to Wellington County for housing funding. 4, consider staffing implications of a township housing mandate going forward. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Wilton, seconder on that. Councillor Adams. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? So moved. Thank you very much for that. Item 11.7, RZ 0524 zoning bylaw enactment, 6235 Guelph Street, Nickel APA Power Best Facility. Hello, Mariana.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Waters, members of council. This report, you'll be very familiar now with IPA Power's battery energy storage system facility at 6235 Guelph Street. It's located on the south side of Second Line, just west of Tower Street or Highway 6. And in May, council has approved the zoning amendment application that was made. But we had not enacted yet the actual zoning bylaw, the corresponding zoning bylaw, because we were waiting for the county to approve their corresponding official plan amendment, number 130. So that just occurred on September 25th. So the county has approved or adopted their corresponding official plan amendment. So now the zoning bylaw amendment can be enacted. And it will come into effect after the OPA 130 is in effect, and that's just after all the appeal periods expire. So this zoning amendment before you is to enact the zoning amendment bylaw, the application itself. And I am pleased to answer any questions. I can tell you that it is currently under site plan approval, the application as well. So staff is still reviewing that, but this is the zoning bylaw amendment that will allow it as a permitted use on the lands.
Okay, thank you for that. Comments, questions? Yes, Councillor Adams.
Thank you, through you. So in the past, I've spoken about respecting the need for on-farm diversification. I've also spoke about concerns with this project in terms of the company and location. However, this council did decide to approve the application of rezoning. And I respect that and look forward to IPA being a good community partner. And so I will not be opposing the bylaw tonight. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions from council? Okay. Thank you. I will read the recommendation that the Council of Township of Centre Wellington give 3 readings to the bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 2009-045 to change the zoning on the portion of the property at 6235 Guelph Street, Nickel to A196 to allow battery energy storage system facility. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Jefferson, seconder on that. Councillor Evoy, any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? So moved. I'll just wait for Councillor Wilton to rejoin us. Okay, so now moving down to 11.8, bylaw to regulate site triangles within the township. And I'm looking over here to Carrie.
Through you, I think the report is relatively straightforward. Site triangle bylaws are passed to ensure clear visibility at street intersections and driveways, primarily for the safety of motorists and pedestrians, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions or comments? Councillor McDonald.
Just one, through you, Mayor Waters, to the clerk. If someone has bushes or something that is in the sight line, are we reaching out to them first before we cut them? Or asking them to do it first?
Yes.
Okay.
Mayor Waters, there is a procedure at the bottom of the report. We will definitely work with the property owner to give them every opportunity to trim or to remove before taking any action whatsoever. And this isn't a hammer or a hard bylaw. It's simply put in place so that we have tools and mechanisms at our disposal. But it's not an aggressive enforcement measure.
Thank you, through you, sir. So to clarify, this was, it seems like an obvious fit. So this was under zoning before, and this allows us to better police it, for lack of better words?
Through you, there are provisions in the zoning bylaw. These are added to those provisions just for some clarity and to give us tools under the Municipal Act to enforce.
Any other comments, questions? Okay, I'll read the, thank you, Carrie, for that. I'll read the recommendation that the Council of Township of Central Wellington authorize the mayor and clerk to execute a bylaw to regulate site triangles within the Township of Central Wellington. Mover on that. Councillor Wilton, seconder on that. Councillor Adams. And he, any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? So moved. I'm going to go through the bylaws. The one on the IPA power, I'm going to leave at the bottom, but we'll deal with the other ones first on the bylaws. Okay. Bylaw 2025-56, a bylaw to appoint various employees of Alpha Technology Systems, OA Alpha Parking Solutions as municipal law enforcement officers for the purpose of enforcing the township parking bylaw. Second, 2025-57, a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute a bylaw to regulate site triangles within the township of Central Wellington. A bylaw, next, bylaw 2025-58, a bylaw to amend the Township Centre Wellington zoning bylaw 2009-045 as amended to change the zoning of certain lands from A to A11.5, 6949 Wellington Road 7 Nickel. And so I'll read the recommendation.
56 through 58.
Yes, that the bylaws 2025-56 through 2025-58 be read a first, second, and third, and passed, signed by the mayor and clerk and corporate seal affixed. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Evoy, seconder on that. Councillor McDonald. Any further comments or questions? All those in favor? So moved. So you can just move back just a little bit. So I'll read, if you don't want to, you can just whatever. So,
you know, it's the 4 hour.
Yeah, I know. And okay. Sorry. Okay. 2025-59, a bylaw to amend the Township of Central Wellington zoning bylaw 2009-045 as amended to change the zoning of certain lands from A19.3 to A19.6 APA Power BESS facility. Do you have a mover on that? Councillor Jefferson, seconder on that. Councillor McDonald, any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? So moved. Okay. Thank you. Notice of motions. No. Okay. Motions where notice have been given. Confirmatory bylaw. A bylaw to confirm the actions of council. Recommendation that bylaw 2025-60 to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting held September 29, 2025 be introduced a first, second, and third time and passed in open council. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor, I was going to say, Councillor Craddock. Yes, we're thinking of you, Dennis. Councillor Wilton. Seconder on that, Councillor Adams. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? So moved. Okay. Do you have a mover for adjournment? Councillor McDonald, seconder on that. Councillor Jefferson. Who would like to? Oh, we are all voting on this? Okay. 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 Thank you. All those in favor? So moved. Thanks again. Thanks for staying there, and whoever's out there still, thanks for watching us. Okay. Have a good night.